All right, welcome back. We're working on authserver.net. This is probably going to be the final day on it. What we're doing, we have two main tasks that we need to get done today. The first is that we need to implement a dynamic CORS system. The second that we need to implement is business logic layer to hold the logic, which is currently being done with entities. So let's do the first one. If I look at the way I'm currently doing CORS, I'm not using the .NET framework. In my authorized controller, I have a function in here called is origin valid asynchronous, and it's checking against here. Now this is not what we want. We want this valid CORS origin to only be on certain policies, right? So I'm going to remove this for now and then move this over into my middleware. So we're going to make a new folder in here called middleware. And the first thing I want to do is bring over my error middleware that I've already created. And we'll put that in authserver.net.middleware. And then this is only temporary, but we're going to overwrite this middleware. So I'm going to call it OAuth. We'll call it OAuth server CORS middleware. Okay, and if I look at the middleware which is provided by Microsoft, this is it here. We can see it's passing in a CORS service here and a CORS policy. It's got 3 constructors in it. And then we're doing the invocation here to make sure that it contains the origin. And then it invokes it asynchronously and evaluates the policy, applies the result, and gives it a status code. So what I have here is this simplified with these 3 constructors. So we're going to bring these in here. And in this, I want to add in a protected read-only iCORS service. And then a protected read-only iCORS policy provider. Now, normally with .NET, this CORS middleware is registered here. So we would have, for example, a app.use middleware called my OAuth server CORS middleware. And the only reason I'm including this is because I want to override the policy while we test this. So copying the simplest of this CORS policy, and again, we're not going to use this in production. This is only for testing. So here, it starts by checking to see if the header is origin, but we're not going to have that because we're working all within ASP.NET. So instead, I'm going to pull from my CORS policy provider this new policy, which I'm not going to give it a name. It's just going to be my default policy. When I look at my introspect controller, we want to check CORS here. We don't need to on the login. On the token controller, we do if it says to. We want to check for valid origin here as well. Okay. So back over here in the middleware, we want to say that we're going to get this policy, and if it's not null, then we're going to evaluate, apply the result. If the method and the pre-flight HTTP message header are equal and there's not a access control request, so it's evaluating the policy and then checking to see if it's an exception. So let's just start here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my new, let's get rid of this, a new folder in here called CORS. And I want to make a new class called a OAuth CORS policy provider. And we want to inherit from CORS policy provider. We're going to have a interface for get policy. And I want to back over here in the middleware, I can inject my data access layer here to get this. I don't think I can do it here. Hey there, Lechif. How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. We're working on a project called authserver.net. It's up on YouTube and youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. And then the project itself is open source at github.com or github.pixelhorrorstudios.com. And that's all. And so what I'm doing here is I'm creating a dynamic CORS policy for our auth server. Here, we're getting the policy. So when I do this, I want to have my context in this. So can I inject in here So can I inject in here my data access layer? It's called OAuth server data access layer. And let's see if this works. So now in my startup, I've registered this new CORS Middleware, and I also want to register a new transient for my CORS provider called OAuth CORS policy provider. And let's see what happens. And we got a fail. Let's try it again. No public invoke or invoke async was found for the middleware OAuth server CORS middleware. This is invoke async. What's wrong here? I've got two classes. Like that. And then let's change this one to be invoke async as well. Started. Okay, so it can't resolve CORS policy provider because it requires a scoped service of application database context. So I can't inject it there. This is required per the interface. We've registered this, so we can pull this out. And we can just have this new CORS policy provider return just a new policy. Like that. And then we want to evaluate the policy and apply the result. Where did I put that? This one. Here you can see it's getting the policy, evaluating it, applying the result. 204 non-contact. Otherwise we respond starting. So this is fine here. We're going to throw a result here because it's not going to work. And what I want to do is I'm going to inject it here, IOAuth service data access layer. And so now what I can do is I can actually look at the query here. So we're going to say this custom middleware is going to first pull the client ID from the request and verify that the client is not allowing CORS origins. And verify that the client is allowing CORS origins. So I want to do a context.request.query called the client ID. When I look at my login controller, we're not going to know it here. But the token controller does include the ID. So we're going to copy this into the middleware. So I want to get the authorization like that. And if there isn't one, then we're going to decode. If there is a bearer token, then we're going to decode it. Otherwise, I want to get it from the query string. Now what I can do is I can get my client. Of my client ID. So if my client is equal to null, then I want to return here a, and if I look at my returns that I have available, I'm just going to say invalid request. Okay. So like that. So if my client is not equal to null, then what I want to do is I want to get my CORS origins, which is CORS get client CORS origins asynchronous of my client.id. And then for each one of my CORS origin, I want to say my policy dot add, so origins, allow any header, we want to say true. Never mind. These are all read-only. So here we're just going to say CORS policy.origins.add my new CORS origin.origin URI. Then what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate the policy, apply the result, I'm a little confused with what this is doing here. If I look at this one, we can just do this. And then back over here, we have this new onResponse starting. We don't have a logger on here. But we can by saying logger of my OAuth server CORS middleware. See if that works. onResponse starting delegate. We have up here at the top. And this needs to go to a static method now. Which means that this is a static as well. Now it's making these CORS services static. Which is why it was doing it like this. And it was setting the public CORS service to be CORS service. And then we were doing middleware.CORS service. And then finally the logger is here. And we want to say ilogger factory. And then logger is here. Same thing here. Perfect. And then we want to say the ilogger logger. Oh, we already have that. This says it's coming from a CORS logger extension. So we can actually just scrap that. So let's set it here, rebuild it. We'll run it again. Okay, good. So we're looking here and we're getting the bearer token, which is nothing. We get a CORS policy of nothing. We get the client, which is null. We got to rerun it. I'd messed that up. Perfect. Okay, we're going to go to authorization code index. It's going to redirect me. Now we're going to get my bearer token, which we don't have. Instead, we get the client ID and the client secret, which we have. We get the client. Now we get the origins, which are 1. We add the origin URI, 44338. We evaluate the policy. So now we're going to go jump down here to the results starting. Now my state here and my response and when I look at what happens, it looks good. It looks like it passed CORS. So let me try it a different way. Let me change my CORS origin now. For auth code, we'll just do it right in the database. Okay, we're going to change this and get rid of the 3.8 at the back of both of them. Now we'll run it again. Just to make sure it didn't reseed them. It did. It reseeded them. So what I want to do is in my seed data, we're going to get rid of this temporarily. And then in this I can do edit and change these again. When I check these again, it didn't add any more, which is what we wanted. Okay, we're going to go to authorization code. Now the result should have failed it, but it didn't. When I look at this again, is origin allowed? Looks like that it should be applying this. When we're at the login, it is failing this one as we would expect. But at auth code, we want to make sure that this is working right. See, but it's letting me get through before it applies the result. And then it kicks me over here. So it's not working. So if I look back over here, after we evaluate this policy, I want to apply the result and do this. And let's try it again. Okay, when I look here, the method is a get. So the string is not for pre-flight requests. Try it again. We add the policy. We're going to get the CORS result. I see the origins. So I don't see where it's this applies headers. I'm very confused here with what's happening. So I'll look for a custom CORS Middleware ASP.NET Core. Because this is building a policy. This is just defining my own policy. So never have I checked that these headers origins match. Now, initially, we had it following the original CORS document. Where did that go? I want to say CORS Middleware Microsoft done. Let's go back to this one. Let's watch this again. And we got our policy. There was no client yet. Okay, we get our origins. It is not a pre-flight check, so now we're going to create this CORS middleware, our context, and our CORS result. That now lets me through. CORS result doesn't have that in it. Let's try it again. The result doesn't have any allowed origins. Now when I look at the response, didn't change anything there. What about the request? So I want to say that if my context contains the key for origin, and my client is I'll add in here a new bool called validate CORS. So this is a function. So could I do let's see, we want to do that, and then we want to pass in the string and a bool. So I want to look up here, C# subscribe to function. So we just do a we just call it. We're going to add in here context.request. Dot headers dot of the CORS constants called origin. So is origin allowed? If origin is not allowed, then I want to return, we're going to say it's a throw new app error exception called invalid CORS configuration. Let's try it again. Okay, here we go. In here, we need to have prop bool validate CORS. And we want to set that equal to be true. So in my seed data, I want to say validate CORS equals true, equals true, equals false for RO password, and false for client credentials. Okay. So if I was to run this again, we need to delete the database and rebuild it. Add migration here to the init, and it's in the data migrations folder. It's probably going to fail. It needs this to be the startup project. And then we can set everything to go, and it will automatically update the database. Let it finish seeding. Okay, here we go. We redirect. It didn't even go into the... because I re-enabled this over here. And we need to get rid of this for my tests. Try again. Let's try again. Okay, here we go. We pass in, we get my ID, we validate the origins. We don't have any. Is this origin allowed? No. Invalid CORS configuration. Perfect. Now if I come back over here into my seed data, and I re-enable these, and I run it again, and we'll just go to authorization code. This time we get my CORS policy, we evaluate everything. It says that the header is not there still, which is correct. So over here in my client where I'm doing the call, we're just going to cheat and do a client.headers.add, and it's called origin, and then we want to add in the globals.client URI. Okay, this time, when I get down here to is this allowed, the headers I don't see it. So this is going to redirect me. Oh, but it's not using the client. So if I want to say ASP.NET Core redirect add header. Okay, could I just do a request.headers.add? Let's try that again. Okay, we're going to go to authorization code. It adds it. My headers are 12. Still don't see it. So instead of adding it to the request, can you add it to the response? Strange. Okay, this time when I look at my headers, I've only got one. Still don't have it here. Okay, let's check this. What about the response? Don't have anything. It's never making it there. It's making me think that the best thing we could do is actually deploy it and test it. But before it ever hits here, this should already be a pending origin on it. So let's say I did a deploy. Now I'm deploying this out. I'm going to open up IIS. When I look at my bindings on 80, it's just to all hosts. So if I explore this, and I stop the website and I stop the application, pool, now I can go to this folder, copy everything over. And now I can start the pools. And browse to 80. And then I want to go to authorization code index. Now this is failing for me because we want to connect as me. So just a second. Okay, back with you. Now I can access the path. Now this thing didn't work because I need to change this to be Win64 self-contained. And then I want to change this again to delete all existing files. Okay. Now when I open this folder up, this looks a lot better. And then I can just copy those over here. And then jump down to IIS Express and start this again. Says it can't read the web.config. Let's go ahead and remove this website. We'll add a new one. And I just want to point it to the desktop temp. Just one more second. Okay, back with you. Okay, let's move that folder to be here on the desk on C. And now I can go to authorization code.index. It should be displaying this main page, but it's not. So back over here, we want to look at the application pool. Change this identity to B. Just a second. Okay, let's see if that works. Still getting forbidden. If I look at my settings for startup, use HTTPS redirection will mess me up. Let's go ahead and redeploy it. Stop the site, get ready to restart the application pool. Okay, we restart the pool, restart the site. Now it's telling me I can't read the web config again. If I look at that one more time, because I'm just going to deploy this to test it. No, I can't get it. Okay, so I think our CORS policy is set up correctly. But to test it, I'm going to actually have to put this into production so that I can get a request from another URI. Or what I could do is we could make a new project. And open this in code. And we can go to Angular Tour of Heroes. and I want to do a ng new OAuth server.net.ui. Yes, we want routing. We want SCSS. Let it generate the project. In the meantime, I'm going to jump over to another project I have called the Monitor. And I should in here have a HTTP service. Which we're going to use. Okay, here it is. So we can go into the folder. And the first thing I want to do is in my app module, I want to import the HTTP client module. Which comes in from at Angular common HTTP. And now what I want to do is I want to ng generate a service called HTTP service. And in my component TS, when this loads, I want to make a new page called ng generate component, and we're going to call it main. That looks better. And now in routing, I want to add in a new route here. And we just want to say that my path is going to be for nothing. My component is going to be main component. Run guards. And resolvers is always. So when I do an ng serve open, I should be able to pass in here the HTTP service. Been a little bit, sorry. Okay, main is working. So when we load this, I want to do HTTP service dot, and now we need to write the call. We're going to do this really fast. So we're going to have a new function in here called request auth. And we're just going to inject here a private HTTP client called HTTP client. It's going to be this.http client.get. And we're going to go to this URI. So my auth server URL is this. And we want to include all of these things. My client ID is test client. My redirect URI is this one. That's it. Now, instead of doing this, we're going to do a redirect just to this. So can I do window.location equals this? So I want to say Angular CLI navigate to URL. Window location href. And now I should just be able to go to localhost 4200. And it redirected me, but it's not running. So we'll run it. Okay, there we go. It's invoking this. We don't have a bearer token. So instead we just get the client ID and the secret. Okay, let's try it again. Because it says that my request, here we go, has this client ID. We get it. We get the CORS origins of the headers. We have 13. We still don't see origin. Okay, well, I'm out of time for right now. I'll be back this afternoon. Let's say we'll shoot for, let's say that we're going to go till, we'll come back at like 2:30 p.m. and we'll pick up here. So our dynamic course configuration is almost completed. I'm having a hard time getting the origin header to populate, so we'll see what we can do. But thank you guys for staying with me. If you have any questions, discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com, and I put all these videos up at youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you in just a little bit. Have a great one. Bye.